Danny Cole had never thought of himself as a brave man. He was 34 years old and he worked as a cargo hauler for a small human shipping company. His job was simple. He moved boxes from one place to another across the stars. He did not carry a weapon. He had no military training. He was just an ordinary guy trying to make a living in a galaxy that did not think much of humans. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only been traveling among the stars for about 50 years. Most alien species looked at them the way a person might look at a loud child in a quiet room. Humans were emotional. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were primitive. That was what everyone said. Danny had heard it 1,000 times and he had learned to ignore it. Today was his shore leave and he was walking through the great marketplace of Prime. This trading station was one of the busiest places in the sector. Hundreds of alien species came here to buy and sell goods. The air smelled like a mix of strange foods and stranger perfumes. Voices called out in dozens of languages. Lights of every color flashed from shop windows and vendor stalls. Danny liked this place. It reminded him of the street markets back on Earth where his grandmother used to take him when he was a boy. He missed Earth sometimes. He missed the blue sky and the green trees and the sound of rain on a tin roof. But he had made his choice to come out here and he did not regret it. He was looking at a stall that sold small mechanical toys when he heard a sound that made him stop. It was a cry, a small cry, the kind of sound a frightened child makes when they are trying not to make any sound at all. Danny turned his head and looked toward a narrow alley between two large buildings. He saw movement in the shadows. He took a few steps closer, and then he saw what was happening. There was a child in the alley. She was small, maybe 5 or 6 years old by human standards. Her skin was pale blue and her eyes were large and dark like pools of black water. Danny recognized her species. They were known throughout the galaxy as a peaceful people. They were scholars and artists and healers. They did not fight. They did not carry weapons. They believed in harmony and understanding. This made them easy targets. The child was pressed against the wall and standing in front of her were 5 creatures that made Danny's stomach turn cold. They were a reptilian species with scales the color of dried blood and teeth like broken glass. They were slavers. Everyone knew this. They took people from weaker species and sold them to the highest bidder. It was illegal in most of the galaxy, but they did not care about laws. One of them was reaching for the child. She was crying without sound. Tears ran down her blue cheeks, but she did not scream. Maybe she knew that screaming would not help. Maybe she was too scared to scream. Danny looked around. There were people passing by the entrance to the alley. They could see what was happening. They could see a child about to be taken by slavers, and every single one of them looked away. They walked faster. They pretended not to notice. They did not want trouble with the... Danny understood. He really did. They were dangerous. They were armed with curved blades that could cut through bone. There were 5 of them. What could one person do against 5 armed slavers? The smart thing to do was walk away. The safe thing to do was mind his own business. Danny was not a hero. He was not a soldier. He was just a cargo hauler who moved boxes for a living. But that little girl was looking at him now. Her dark eyes had found his across the crowded marketplace. She was not asking for help. She was too young to know that she could ask. She was just looking at him with all the fear in the universe in her eyes. Danny thought about his grandmother. He thought about something she used to say to him when he was young. She would say that the world is full of people who look away. She would say that evil wins when good people do nothing. She would say that a man is not measured by what he does when things are easy. A man is measured by what he does when things are hard. Danny took a deep breath. His heart was beating so fast he could feel it in his throat. His hands were shaking. Every part of his brain was screaming at him to turn around and walk away. He did not walk away. He stepped into the alley. They turned to look at him. The leader was the largest of them. He had a scar running down the side of his face, and his yellow eyes were filled with cruel amusement. He looked at Danny the way a predator looks at something small and weak. "Go away, human," the leader said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "This is not your business." Danny swallowed hard. He could smell the now. They smelled like old meat and something sour. He wanted to run. Every instinct in his body told him to run. "Let the child go," Danny said. His voice came out steadier than he expected. All 5 of them laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Humans," the leader said to his companions. "They say humans are stupid. I did not believe it until now." He drew his blade. It was long and curved, and it gleamed in the dim light of the alley. "You would die for a child that is not even your species." Danny did not have an answer for that. He did not know why he was doing this. He only knew that he could not walk away. He could not let this happen and do nothing. "Let her go," Danny said again. The leader stopped laughing. His yellow eyes went cold and hard. "Kill him," he said to his companions. "Make it slow. Let the child watch. It will teach her not to hope." The 5 drew their blades and began to move toward Danny. He had no weapon. He had no training. He had nothing but his own 2 hands and a stubborn refusal to let an innocent child be taken. Danny raised his fists and prepared to fight. The first came at Danny fast. The blade cut through the air with a whistle. Danny moved to the side, but he was not fast enough. The blade caught his left shoulder and pain exploded through his body like fire. He felt his blood begin to flow. It was warm and wet against his skin. Danny did not scream. He grabbed the arm of the who had cut him and he pulled hard. The alien was not expecting this. Humans were supposed to fall down when they were hurt. Humans were supposed to cry and beg. This human did neither of these things. Danny drove his elbow into the face of the first. He felt something crack under the impact. The alien stumbled back with a howl of pain, but there were still 4 more. The second blade found his side. Danny gasped as the metal slid between his ribs. The pain was worse than anything he had ever felt. It was like being burned from the inside. He could feel the blood leaving his body. He could feel himself getting weaker. But behind him, the little girl was still crying. She was still pressed against the wall with nowhere to go. And Danny was the only thing standing between her and these monsters. He kept fighting. The 3rd wound came to his back as he turned to block a strike aimed at the child. The 4th caught his arm when he threw a punch at another. Danny was bleeding from so many places now. His shirt was soaked red. His vision was starting to blur around the edges. A grabbed him from behind and another blade found his leg. That was 5. Danny fell to one knee, but he did not stay down. He pushed himself back up. He did not know how. He did not know where he found the strength. He just knew that he could not stop. Not yet. Not while the child was still in danger. The leader watched all of this with growing confusion in his yellow eyes. He had killed many beings in his life. He had seen warriors and soldiers and fighters of every kind. None of them had ever done what this human was doing. None of them had kept fighting after taking so many wounds. "What are you?" the leader asked. Danny did not answer. He could not spare the breath. He grabbed one of the smaller and drove his forehead into the alien's face. It was a desperate move, a street fighting trick he had learned as a boy growing up in a rough part of town. The went down hard and did not get up. But the effort cost Danny. Another blade found his stomach, 6 wounds now. He could feel the cold spreading through his body. Shock was setting in. He knew he was dying. A 7th wound opened on his chest when he blocked a strike meant for the child. She had grabbed onto his leg now. She was holding onto him like he was the only safe thing in the universe. Her small blue hands were covered in his red blood. Danny grabbed the arm of another and twisted. He heard the bone snap. The alien screamed and dropped his blade. But the last 2 were still standing and Danny could barely see anymore. Everything was getting dark and fuzzy. The 8th wound came to his other side. Danny finally fell. He went down on both knees. He could not get up again. His body had nothing left to give, but even as he fell, he turned himself to face the remaining. Even on his knees, he put himself between them and the child. "Run," he whispered to her. His voice was barely a sound. "Please run." But she would not let go of him. She was too scared to run. She just held onto his leg and cried. The leader stood over Danny with his blade raised. His yellow eyes were filled with something that might have been respect. "You are a fool," the leader said, "but you are a brave fool. I will make your death quick. That is more than most receive from me." Danny looked up at him. He could not lift his arms anymore. He could not fight. All he could do was speak. "She is just a child," Danny said. Blood bubbled on his lips when he talked. "She never hurt anyone, just let her go." The leader shook his head. "She is worth a fortune to the right buyer. Her kind always are, and you will be dead in moments. There is no one to stop me." Danny closed his eyes. He had tried. He had given everything he had. It was not enough. He had failed. And then he heard a sound. It was the sound of heavy footsteps, many heavy footsteps. They were coming from the entrance of the alley. They were coming fast. Danny opened his eyes. Through the blur of his fading vision, he saw shapes moving into the alley. They were tall figures in armor, black armor that seemed to drink in the light. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. The leader turned around and Danny saw something he had never seen before. He saw it go pale with fear. The red scales on the leader's face seemed to lose their color. His yellow eyes went wide. "That is impossible," the leader whispered. A voice spoke from the darkness. It was cold and sharp like a blade made of ice. "Step away from the human." The voice belonged to one of the armored figures. Danny could not see clearly, but he could tell that these newcomers were not human. They were too tall. They moved in a way that was both graceful and deadly. "You cannot be real," the leader said. His voice was shaking. "They do not have soldiers. Everyone knows this." The armored figure at the front of the group stepped forward. The figure reached up and removed the black helmet to reveal a face. It was a face, pale blue skin, large dark eyes, but this face was different from any Danny had ever seen. This face was hard and cold and filled with a quiet fury that made the air feel heavy. "Everyone is wrong," the soldier said. "Now drop your weapons or die where you stand." Danny's vision finally gave out. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the little girl still holding onto his leg. She was looking at the armored figures with recognition in her eyes. She knew them. She knew who they were. And then Danny knew nothing at all. The soldiers moved like shadows given form. They did not speak again. They did not need to. The leader dropped his blade and it clattered against the stone floor of the alley. His companions did the same. Their weapons fell one by one like leaves from a dying tree. "On your knees," the commander said. Her voice left no room for argument. They obeyed. Even the one with the broken arm obeyed. They knelt in the blood that Danny had spilled, and they did not dare to look up. These were creatures who had terrorized entire systems. These were slavers who feared nothing in the galaxy, and they knelt before the like children caught doing something wrong. The commander turned to look at Danny. He was lying on the ground now. The little girl was still holding onto him. She had pressed her small body against his side as if she could keep him warm, as if she could keep him alive through the force of her will alone. "Grandmother," the little girl said. Her voice was small and broken. "He saved me. He would not let them take me. Please help him." The commander's cold expression changed. Something soft flickered in her dark eyes. She knelt beside the child and touched her face with a gentle hand. "I know, little one," she said. "I saw everything. We were watching the moment he stepped into the alley." "Then why did you wait?" the child asked. Tears were still running down her blue cheeks. "Why did you let them hurt him?" The commander was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy with something that might have been shame. "We needed to be certain," she said. We needed to know if he was truly trying to save you or if this was a trap. We have many enemies who would use such tricks." "He is dying," the child said. "Grandmother, he is dying because of me." The commander stood up and turned to her soldiers. Her voice became hard again. "Secure them for transport. They will face justice before the High Council." She paused and looked down at Danny. His blood was pooling beneath him. His breathing was shallow and weak. "And bring the human. We are taking him with us." One of the soldiers stepped forward. He was large even by standards, and his black armor was marked with silver symbols that showed his rank. "Commander," he said, "our medical facilities have never treated a human before. We do not know if we can save him." "Then we will learn," Commander said. "This man shed his blood for a child of our people. He fought against impossible odds when everyone else looked away. He did not know who she was. He did not ask for reward. He simply saw a child in danger and he chose to help." She looked at her soldier with eyes that burned like cold fire. "We will not let him die. Do you understand?" The soldier bowed his head. "Yes, Commander." They lifted Danny from the ground with care that seemed strange coming from such deadly warriors. The little girl would not let go of his hand. She walked beside them as they carried him out of the alley, and she held onto his fingers like they were the most precious thing in the universe. The marketplace had gone quiet. Hundreds of aliens had gathered to watch. They had seen the soldiers emerge from the alley with the in chains. They had seen the bleeding human being carried like a fallen hero. Whispers spread through the crowd like ripples in water. "They have soldiers," someone said. "That human fought 5 alone," someone else said. "He took 8 wounds and did not fall. He protected a child that was not his own." The whispers grew louder. They became conversations. The conversations became stories, and the stories began to spread. Commander ignored all of it. She led her team through the crowd and toward a ship that no one had noticed before. It was sleek and black, and it seemed to appear out of nowhere. The technology that powered it was centuries ahead of anything the other species possessed. They had many secrets. This ship was just one of them. They brought Danny aboard and placed him on a medical table. Machines came to life around him. Lights scanned his body and displays showed his vital signs. The numbers were not good. He had lost too much blood. His organs were beginning to fail. By all rights, he should have been dead already. "How is he still alive?" one of the medical officers asked. She was studying the readings with wide eyes. No being should survive these injuries. Commander looked at Danny's face. Even unconscious, he looked determined. His jaw was set. His brow was furrowed. He looked like a man who was refusing to give up even in his dreams. "Humans," she said quietly, "they are strange creatures. Their bodies are fragile, but their will is made of something harder than steel." She placed her hand on Danny's forehead. His skin was cold and damp with sweat. "Fight a little longer, human. We are trying to save you. Do not give up yet." The ship lifted off from the station and jumped into faster than light travel. It was heading for a place that did not exist on any map, a hidden world where they kept their greatest secrets. For thousands of years, they had pretended to be helpless. They had let the galaxy believe that they were pacifists who could not fight. This was a lie. It was a lie that protected them. Enemies who thought they were weak did not bother to attack them. Enemies who believed they had no military did not waste resources trying to conquer them. But they did have a military. They had the Shadow Guard. 6,000 of the deadliest soldiers in the galaxy trained from childhood to protect their people from the darkness. They operated in secret. They left no witnesses. They were ghosts and legends and nightmares. And now they were fighting to save the life of one ordinary human who had done something extraordinary. The little girl sat beside Danny's bed and held his hand through the entire journey. She did not sleep. She did not eat. She just held his hand and whispered to him in her own language. "Please do not die," she said. "Please do not leave me. You saved my life, now let us save yours." Danny could not hear her. He was lost in darkness, fighting a battle that no one could see. But somewhere deep inside him, something was still holding on. Something was still refusing to let go. He was not ready to die, not yet. Danny woke up to the sound of water. It was a soft sound, gentle and distant like a stream flowing over smooth stones. He opened his eyes and saw white. Everything was white. The ceiling, the walls, the soft glow of light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. For a moment he thought he was dead. He thought this was what came after, but then he felt the pain. It was dull and heavy like someone had filled his body with sand. Dead people did not feel pain. At least he hoped they did not. He tried to move, and a voice spoke from beside him. "Do not try to sit up yet. Your body has been through great trauma." Danny turned his head. There was a woman sitting in a chair next to his bed. She was old. Her pale blue skin had faded to a softer shade, and her large, dark eyes held the weight of many years. But there was kindness in those eyes. There was warmth. "Where am I?" Danny asked. His voice came out rough and dry. "You are in a place that does not exist," the old woman said. She smiled at his confusion. "That is not a riddle. This world has no name on any star map. It is where we keep our secrets." She reached over and poured water from a crystal container into a small cup. She helped him drink. The water was cool and sweet, and it was the best thing Danny had ever tasted. "How long?" Danny asked. "You have been asleep for 3 days. Our doctors worked very hard to save your life. They had never treated a human before. They had to learn as they went." The old woman set down the cup and folded her hands in her lap. "You almost died 7 times. Each time your heart stopped, we brought you back. Each time you slipped away, you found your way back to us." Danny closed his eyes. He remembered the alley. He remembered the blades and the blood and the little girl with the dark eyes. He remembered the sound of heavy footsteps. "The child," he said, "is she safe?" The old woman's smile grew wider. "She is safe. She is very safe. In fact, she has been sitting beside your bed for most of the past 3 days. She only left an hour ago because her mother made her eat and rest." Danny let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. The child was safe. That was all that mattered. Everything else was just details. "My name is," the old woman said. "I am the High Elder of the people, and the child you saved is my great-granddaughter. Her name is—" Danny stared at her. He did not know what to say. He had saved the great-granddaughter of the leader of an entire species. He had not known. He would not have cared if he had known. A child was a child. That was all that mattered to him. "I have a question for you," Danny Cole said. She leaned forward and her ancient eyes searched his face. "Why did you do it? Why did you risk your life for a child you did not know? A child who was not even of your species?" Danny thought about this. He thought about it for a long time. The answer came slowly, like water seeping through cracks in stone. "Where I come from," he said, "there is a saying. You do not let children get hurt if you can stop it. It does not matter whose child they are. It does not matter if they look different or speak different or come from a different place." He paused and took a breath. The pain in his chest made it hard to talk. "I saw her face. I saw how scared she was. And I knew that if I walked away, I would have to live with that for the rest of my life. I would have to remember her eyes every time I looked in a mirror. I would have to know that I could have done something, and I chose not to." He looked at, and something fierce flickered in his tired eyes. "I am not a brave man," he said. "I am not a hero. I was terrified the whole time. But some things are more important than being afraid." Was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "Do you know why they pretend to be weak?" she asked. "Do you know why we hide our soldiers and let the galaxy think we cannot fight?" Danny shook his head. "Because we have seen what happens when species become known for their strength. They become targets. They become threats. Other species unite against them out of fear." Stood up and walked to a window. Outside, Danny could see a sky filled with colors he had no names for. "We chose a different path. We chose to be underestimated. We chose to let our enemies think they could destroy us easily. And then we built an army in the shadows that could destroy anyone who tried. She turned back to look at him. But in all our planning and scheming, we forgot something important. We forgot what it means to simply do the right thing without thinking of consequences. We forgot what it means to be brave not because it is strategic, but because it is good. She walked back to his bedside and took his hand in hers. Her skin was cool and smooth. You reminded us, Danny Cole. You reminded us of something we had lost. I did not do anything special, Danny said. Anyone would have done the same. No, said softly, they would not. I watched the recordings from the marketplace. Hundreds of beings saw what was happening. Every single one of them looked away. Every single one of them decided that it was not their problem. She squeezed his hand. You were the only one who chose differently. That is not nothing. That is everything. The door to the room opened, and the little girl came running in, threw herself onto the bed and wrapped her small arms around Danny. She was crying again, but this time the tears were happy. You are awake, she said. I knew you would wake up. I knew you would not leave me. Danny put his arms around her and held her gently. She was so small. She weighed almost nothing, and yet she had anchored him to life through 3 days of darkness. I am not going anywhere, he said. Watched them with eyes that glistened with moisture. She had lived for over 300 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had guided her people through wars and disasters and challenges beyond counting, but she had never seen anything quite like this. A human and a child holding each other like family. Perhaps, she thought, there was hope for the galaxy after all. Rest now, said. Recover your strength. When you are well enough to stand, there is something I would like to offer you, a way to thank you for what you have done. Danny shook his head. I do not need thanks. I do not want a reward. I just want to know that we'll be safe, that she will not have nightmares about what happened. Smiled. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself in decades. I think, she said, that I have an idea that will satisfy both of us. 3 weeks passed. Danny's wounds healed into scars that would mark him for the rest of his life. 8 lines of raised tissue that told a story without words. The doctors had done their best to minimize them, but Danny had asked them to stop. He wanted to keep the scars. They were proof that he had done something that mattered. On the day of the ceremony, Danny stood in a great hall that took his breath away. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. The walls were made of a crystal that sang softly when the wind touched it. Thousands of filled the space, their pale blue faces turned toward a raised platform at the center. Danny had never been comfortable with attention. He was a cargo hauler. He moved boxes. He was not supposed to stand in front of thousands of people while wearing formal clothes that felt strange against his skin, but was holding his hand, and her small fingers gave him courage. Stood on the platform. She was dressed in robes of deep purple that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. Beside her stood Commander, still in her black armor, watching the crowd with eyes that missed nothing. Today we gather to witness something that has not happened in 400 years, said. Her voice carried through the hall without effort. Today we name an outsider as a friend of the... A murmur went through the crowd. Danny could see surprise on many faces. He could also see curiosity and respect, and something that might have been hope. This man is called Danny Cole, continued. He is human. 3 weeks ago he was walking through a marketplace on Prime when he saw a child of our people being taken by slavers. He did not know who she was. He did not know that she was my great-granddaughter. He knew only that a child was in danger and that no one else was going to help. Paused and looked directly at Danny. He fought 5 armed with nothing but his bare hands. He took 8 wounds that should have killed him. He refused to fall. He refused to let them take her. He stood between that child and death until our soldiers arrived to save them both. The hall had gone completely silent. Every eye was on Danny now. He felt his face grow warm, but he did not look away. When I asked him why he did it, he told me something simple. He told me that where he comes from you do not let children get hurt if you can stop it. It does not matter whose child they are. She smiled, and there were tears in her ancient eyes. They have been hiding for thousands of years. We have been pretending to be weak while building our strength in secret. We have been so focused on strategy and survival that we forgot something important. We forgot what it means to simply be good. She gestured for Danny to come forward. He climbed the steps to the platform on legs that felt unsteady, came with him, still holding his hand. Danny Cole said, "I name you friend of the." This title has not been given to an outsider since the Great War of Ages past. It means that you are under our protection. It means that any who harm you harm us. It means that wherever you go in this galaxy, you carry the friendship of our people with you. She placed a medallion around his neck. It was made of the same crystal as the walls, and it glowed with a soft inner light. "But there is more," said. She turned to address the crowd. "This man has shown us that humans are worthy of our trust. He has shown us that they are capable of courage and kindness that rivals any species in the galaxy. Therefore, I am announcing today that they will enter into a formal alliance with the human race. We will share our knowledge. We will share our technology. We will stand beside them as friends and partners." The crowd erupted. Danny could not tell if they were cheering or arguing or both. It was chaos and noise and overwhelming emotion. He did not know what to do, so he just stood there and let it wash over him. Commander appeared beside him. She leaned close so that only he could hear. "You have changed history today, cargo hauler," she said. "I hope you are ready for what comes next." Danny looked at her. "I just wanted to save a little girl. I did not ask for any of this." Smiled. It was a strange expression on her hard face. "That is exactly why you deserve it." The ceremony ended, and the crowds began to leave. Danny found himself standing on a balcony overlooking a garden that seemed to stretch forever. The sky was turning colors he had never seen as the sun set on this hidden world. Found him there. She was carrying something in her small hands. It was a crystal pendant on a simple chain. The crystal was shaped like a star, and it glowed with a warm light. "I made this for you," she said. "It is a protection charm. Children make them for the people they love. It will keep you safe." Danny knelt down so that he was at her level. He took the pendant and looked at it. It was rough and uneven, clearly made by small hands that were still learning. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Thank you," he said. "I will wear it always." She hugged him and he hugged her back. They stayed that way for a long time. Later that night, Danny returned to his cargo ship. It was still docked at Prime, waiting for him to come back and fly it to the next job. He walked up the ramp and into the cockpit and sat down in his familiar chair. Everything looked the same as it had 3 weeks ago. Everything felt different. He started the engines and prepared for departure. As his ship lifted off from the station, he saw something on his sensors. There were 6 other ships flying in formation around him. They were sleek and black, and they had appeared out of nowhere. His communication system crackled to life. "Cargo vessel, this is Shadow Guard Escort Wing 7, a familiar voice said. It was Commander. "We will be accompanying you to your destination." Danny smiled and shook his head. "I do not need an escort, Commander. I am just a cargo hauler." "You are a friend of the," replied. "You are under our protection now. Permanent detail, covert distance. You will not see us, but we will always be there." Danny thought about arguing. He thought about telling her that he did not want special treatment. But then he thought about, and the pendant around his neck, and the scars on his body that told a story of courage. "Why?" he asked. "Why go to so much trouble for one man?" Was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. "Because you taught us something we had forgotten," she said. "You taught us that true strength is not in weapons or numbers. True strength is in the willingness to stand when others run, to bleed for those who cannot defend themselves. Humans call it courage." She paused. "They will call it hope." Danny looked at the stars stretching out before him. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning about what had happened on Prime. They were learning that they had soldiers. They were learning that humans and were now allies. They were learning that one ordinary man had changed everything by refusing to look away. He touched the crystal pendant around his neck. It was warm against his skin. "Okay, Commander," he said, "let us go." His ship jumped into faster than light travel. The Shadow Guard followed. And across the galaxy, species who had once dismissed humans as primitive and emotional began to wonder if they had been wrong all along.